Welcome back to SoulNet. On today's episode, we are talking about standing up for love and just how painful it can be to do that in today's world. I'm Megan, and today on the pod, I work through some of my own pain in real time with the help of my SoulNet sisters. So if you too are needing some love and support right now, you're not alone. We hope you'll join us for this heart-to-heart. This is a new experience for me because I'm walking in the dark with my daughter for the first time. And she's experiencing, some pain, like at school. And it's just, as a mother, as a parent, walking your child on like this first experience of I think Dana told me she's almost having her Vasilisa journey. Yeah. She's been thrown out into a space where she has to fight and stand up. She was called an upstander this week by a few people that were helping her. And I actually, how crazy is this? I'm 50 years old and I was like, holy cow, okay. An upstander is an upstanding citizen and somebody who stands up for themselves. And the others that don't do that are bystanders. And we hear often about bystanders.
That's amazing.
Wow. I know. And so here I am learning alongside her that she is an upstander. She is standing up and she's 14. And it's just been this journey of learning alongside her, as it's just a different role as a mother that you take and you witness, but you're the witness, but you're also there to support and play all these different roles.
And advocate and take, wow.
Anyway, that's something, maybe that's what I leave you with, SoulNet, is there are upstanders. And I think that's my new favorite word. Okay. Let's be upstanders, which is the technical term for an upstanding citizen.
I love it. That is amazing. What an empowering word.
It's funny as a society how we've hung on to the bystander, which is the lower vibration. Most of us don't know this upstanding. I consider myself fairly well read. I've never heard that until today. I mean, maybe upstanding citizen, maybe a little bit, but not to connect the dots on it in that way. So thank you, Megan, for a reminder that we need to spread these higher level and acknowledge these parts of society versus always going into, again, those lower vibration spaces. We have to go there to grow, but we don't have to stay there.
I love this conversation about the low frequency and the high frequency, like the energy that we live in, that we are, that we connect with, that energetic field, right? And I agree. I think when upstanders are standing up, they are standing up with so much love. Like that's the energy they're standing with. Love for themselves, love for others. So they're standing up for what is right. Yeah, I love this idea of the frequency. It's been heavy so far in January. Well, I guess we're in February now, but it's been heavy. And I think that I look to you guys and I look to this podcast and this group for that lift, for that community, for that love, for that energy. So thank you.
That's a beautiful description of being walked hand in hand together, and that we take turns in the shadow, and Megan, you reminded me of one of my favorite stories in Greek mythology of Persephone's journey, how she has to go underground half the year. And that's actually something I was thinking about for our pod, is that we all have our Persephone's journeys and our personal Everest journeys. This hero's journey is an internal one, and we go underground in our own kind of Hades We go underground into our internal Hades when these life experiences that challenge our feeling of safety, or in your daughter's case, justice, what's right and what's wrong, what's good for the people and what's harmful for the people. I mean, it's amazing. Your 14-year-old daughter is standing up for what's good, for what's right. And she's,
and it really is. And it is, to your point, Eilina, it's rooted in a feeling of safety.
Yeah.
Being safe, having autonomy over your body, over your mind. It's all about safety.
And she's at such a pivotal age of this, right? This is kind of where I think maybe a lot of us, in our previous generations, this is where life started to break us. I know I was probably around her age when some of my experiences, started to show up. And so the fact that, you as a family are able to advocate and, love on your daughter and do your best to keep her safe, while she's also stepping into this new part of which will be her existence, moving forward, and how she's going to deal with these things as they come up as she moves forward.
Yeah, I mean, what I learned this week, I will share with you, is that she's in a very unique place. When you're in pain and you've been hurt, and you felt that nobody has seen you or heard you, you can go two ways. You can go to a place of PTSD, or you can go to a place of growth. And we are supporting her in her growth journey, which is one where she has to recognize that the world is not kind all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you can look inward, you find your way, your own ways, and you take agency.
Exactly.
Whatever that looks like, whatever that means for you to feel safe. Yeah. And so that's where we are. But it takes a village.
Absolutely.
So this pod is a village. This SoulNet is our village. Friend circles, your networks, those people that love you are the village you turn to in these times. And for these kids, when they have someone who loves them deeply and a village that stands with them, it's possible for them to grow.
Yes. Versus
not
the
just to
PTSD
survive.
like you described. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not, you don't just survive these moments, but you grow.
What I see for our kids' generation, because we have access to this knowledge and understanding of how growth serves, how Persephone's journey underground gives us deeper roots to be resilient in above ground, which is what your daughter is, literally growing deeper roots for safety, and not just for herself, but for whoever she touches. Like she's a leader in the making, because of these experiences. What a difference. Like, this is the gift we provide as parents. What a difference in our upbringing and theirs. Because ours turned into some aspects of PTSD that became lifelong habits that we later learned to unlearn. It took time, process, decades.
Decades.
And our children, they're not excused from life's challenges and tribulations at all, but their rebound time and their ability to grow the roots is so much faster. And because of that, they can do more with their life force energy. It's just there's more freedom available to them for choice. Yeah, such a difference.
And there's more space. There's more clarity. There's more space. That freedom you talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, I just see how much of a gift your parenting is providing your children.
1,000%, Megan. Both you and your husband.
Well,
and,
thank you. Thank you,
ain't
friends.
Easy.
It's not easy. So, we were talking about levity. Yeah. And during these really dark and hard times, we need to come together and, raise some joy, raise some energy. Maybe my daughter and I can take some tips, and maybe our listeners can take some tips from you as we are in the muck over here. Is there anything you guys are facing, in this new year that's causing you to feel a heaviness and feeling like you need to have that rise moment?
Great question. And what I noticed for myself is I'm right now living the consequence of the past couple years of nervous system exhaustion. Let's just put it that way,
Yes.
from caregiving and being a sandwich generation. And for our listeners who don't know what sandwich generation is, some of you may be living it and you don't know what it's called, is when you are
I think many are living.
many in our generation are living it, taking care of elderly, aging parents and the needs of our aging parents, while also raising our children at the same time. So you're sandwiched in between with the pressures of that.
And trying to have your own life.
Exactly. Thank you. And this has been my experience for the last almost decade. And I'm coming out of it, and I didn't realize the degree of decompression required, recuperation.
Yes.
And so slowing down for me is unfamiliar and was necessary. So there's an identity change, not a crisis, but an identity change around capacity for me. And in that, I have created an intention, speaking of intentions again, because it's not a goal.
Beautiful.
My heart leaned forward into it, just for joy and play. I'm so less attached to outcome, and I can sometimes crack jokes at very inappropriate moments, because for me, it's about finding the humor now in the shit show, because everyone's life has some variation of it. Like I have, over the hundreds and hundreds of clients I've had over the years, nobody is escaping the shit show of life. Not one person. And many of them, I'm like, really? Like even you? So it's no mystery anymore. Everyone's got the complementary opposites of shit show and beauty in their life. Everyone. Doesn't matter who you are. Probably the Dalai Lama included. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I think just some of us, like, we go there or we don't.
Yeah.
So, or we acknowledge that there is a shit show, or we just bypass it, right? So it's, yeah. But the reality is everybody, if they're present, is having those both sides of the coin.
Duality, yeah. And might as well have fun with it. Like I'm at the stage of my life now where I'm just like poking fun at it, and not at it, but with it, poking fun with it, and just like, okay. And it's just so much lighter.
I think there is something, and I had this, and whether it's related to us all turning 50 this year or not, this was the first year when I reflected back on stuff that I actually learning to celebrate those challenges and recognize that I am where I am because of those challenges, and the contentment that I feel, and the ability to, not that I don't have those total dysregulation moments and I don't hit, that low point, because we all do, but I'm able to actually acknowledge it as part of that growth cycle and celebrate that, because I recognize on the other side of that shithole, that valley of death, whatever you want to call it, is that joy and that recognition of those little full circle moments. That was the reason this happened, was the growth that I was needing to do. And so that all of a sudden goes, oh, that was worth it. And I know it's so hard when we're in the moment to recognize that, but that really is when we start to recognize the bigger picture of these challenges that come through for us.
I think that's the beauty of where we're at being our age too, Dana, is like we've been through enough of those valleys of death and darkness. We've been through it a number of times that we now know that once you go down the layers and layers and layers, and if you keep working through it, that, in mythology, like, there's different ways you can look at it. Like you're diving for the pearl, you're diving into the dark, and eventually you find the pearl, or you see the golden flower. I mean, there's so many stories and there's so many ways to look at it, but we've experienced so much now at 50 that we know that is true, that there is a pearl, that there is a golden flower, that there is a thread of light, that there is the other side. And I think that's where, to your point about celebrating the challenges, I think that's one of my favorite parts about being this age.
Exactly.
I mean, it feels often that you're depleted, but you know there is your own well never runs dry.
I will say too, though, Meg, like it never runs dry depending on how you cultivate the water in the well. And we think about the water in the well being our overall mind body. So, what are we doing for our self-care habits? What are we putting in our bodies as far as the qualities of the food that we take in? All of these things, how much time we spend in nature that we've talked about before, how much time we spend in stillness. So how are you cultivating the quality of the well? And then talking about that high vibration piece that you talk about too, or even coming into, relationships and stuff like that of people we're hanging out with that might be lower vibration that are pulling some of that water out of our well. And all of a sudden we're like, why is my cup so empty after spending time with a certain person or, doing a certain activity maybe that doesn't work for your individual constitution or body mind? And learning to identify these things really help us to navigate some of these challenges that we're talking about and keep that cup always at that kind of half full instead of half empty.
That's right.
And for everybody out there, I'm a bit of an optimist. I'm a bit of a I have the levity piece. And I've learned to, partly from familial upbringing, but laughter was a big part of the pain accompaniment in my upbringing. And so I've always kind of come through life with these aspects of levity. So I recognize that sometimes my rosy outlook doesn't always match others. But I really want to point out that just because we can laugh doesn't mean we don't go through our pain. We just, we learn ways to transform it.
Yeah. It's almost like a buffer or a lifeboat. It's a lifeboat in the shit.
It's a lifeboat.
Laughter's a lifeboat in the shit. Yeah. I wanted to.
I love
it. Dana, I wanted to add a piece, just a neuroscience piece around what you shared there, is that when we take the risk to try something that is scary, but you're like, okay, it's been scary before, I'll try it again. Or this feels scary, but there's a piece of curiosity there. I'm going to take the risk and try it anyhow, even being scared. I'm going to take the risk while being scared. That's a neurology piece where there's a new firing and wiring going on, and we're taking ourselves out of the old tracks in the snow that are so well grooved, the tracks in the trail neurologically that are so well grooved, and we're moving the wheels over. And the wheels will be wobbly at first. Yes. But they're going to start new grooves, and that's so important for our growth. This is how we break cycles in our families and our ancestral intergenerational past, just like your daughter is doing, Megan. Your daughter is creating new tracks on the trail and expanding the choices, the neurological choices available for that generation. And it's beautiful work to see it happening. And, it's like the dendrites in the brain are just going, and there's lots of new roots growing.
You know that I love my path walking. So that lane, the tracks, that really speaks to me. Like when you start to blaze a new trail, right? You start to, you find a new lane. And you can do it at any time in your life.
Can I talk, because I love this neurological stuff a little bit, because I'll go into geek mode too from my background. So in movement, we talk a lot about, creating these healthy movement patterns. And a lot of it is what we use the term as neural grooving. Your brain's telling you to do a squat and your body's like shaking and going, what does that mean? And then through repetition, and I won't share the number of reps that's actually required to make a proper pattern, let alone unlearn an improper pattern, because it's really daunting. However, the more we do these things, the smoother those patterns become. So that path might be wobbly, and all of a sudden it's paved, smooth concrete or glass, whatever you want to call it. But it takes time and it takes repetition to get there. And that's whether we're training on the body, the mind, or the spirit, right? Repetition, repetition,
Wow.
repetition.
I want to know how many reps.
Me too.
A new pattern, 10,000 at last documented 10,000 reps to solidify a new pattern between your brain and your body. If you've got a faulty pattern, and I don't know whether this works the same for some of our old conditioning, but it definitely works for movements and reps and the things that we're doing in the gym. And so if you've got a faulty movement pattern, let's say you've had an injury and you've had some issues that are affecting your normal kind of movement patterns, and we know trauma sits in tissues too. So once those things have been released and we're starting to relearn the proper patterning, 33,000 repetitions.
What?
Start your lunges now.
Wow. That
I know,
is
right?
such a testimony to consistency. Wow.
Yeah,
Holy
practice,
moly. Yeah.
strength, and resilience.
And presence in these things, right? Like, so I can definitely speak from the movement side of things. So when you're doing your big movements, are you engaged? Are you thinking about what you're engaging in those moments? Are you present, or are you off in your day? And I feel like that's why often movement's a great gateway to meditation, because it takes us into ourselves and starts to, again, build these aspects of proprioception and understanding how our body is actually moving. I will say most people should have a coach at some point, because a lot of people don't have this. And I spend a lot of time actually kind of saying, hey, have you looked at how your feet are right now before you start that squat? And I cue it thousands and thousands of times too, just so we know.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when I take people on forest therapy walks, when I was in training to become a guide, I did practice walks with people. And what we do is we start the walk with a meditation that sort of takes you, it's an embodiment meditation, and it activates your senses. So you slow down, and it's called pleasures of presence. So the idea is that it's a 20-minute meditation that takes you into your body, right? So you slow your mind down, you slow your thoughts down, and you become one with nature, which is one with yourself. Then we go and we do a series of invitations in nature that continue the process of like sensory immersion and deep connection. And what I realized is that on average, it took an individual 75 minutes to drop in to their parasympathetic from their sympathetic nervous system. Because you don't actually get to rest and recover until you're in the parasympathetic. So if you were only to do a nature walk for an hour, you wouldn't get the same result, right? So it's just interesting about staying the course and going inward and really focusing on the presence.
It's such a beautiful description, Meg, of the process of dropping in. And, there's a 1,000 different paths to get to parasympathetic. What's very popular right now is breath work with meditation. And even in a yoga class, after an hour of leading people through dropping into their body, then Shavasana at the very end is where they are now flowered open. It took that. And that's really the original intention of asana, was to massage the body. Asana being the physical movement of the yoga practice, to massage the body into a state of receptivity, literally, so that you're
for meditation, right?
Yeah, for meditation, because Shavasana is considered the golden jewel, or the most important part of our asana practice. Is the asana is the preparation for Shavasana and meditation. So you described it perfectly. Yeah.
And most of us skip the Shavasana part, or we mitigate it.
I know. Like, it's the juiciest, loveliest. Like, in a way, it's kind of, they're both necessary, because asana is kind of like life, the shit sandwich, and you just massage things through. And then we get this lovely integration piece afterwards, but they're both necessary. Kind of like the inhale is the effort, the exhaled breath is the surrender.
Yoga asana based has really, in the West, we've really done our best to bastardize the way what it's actually supposed to do for us. And it's become
Totally.
exercise for so many people. And, I feel like the lack of being able to sit in the Shavasana and that restful awareness at the end is everyone going, okay, crossing yoga off the list or the exercise off the list. And they won't sit for that extra 2 minutes, 5 minutes, even 20 seconds because they're like, I gotta go. I gotta be somewhere else. And it's the sad part about that is we don't want to say that there's discourage people from doing the yoga, but we're missing the spiritual. The asana is only that one part of the 8 limbs of yoga. So you're missing those whole 7 other ones. And I'm pretty sure that they don't require you to go running back to your busy day on the fly. You're supposed to actually try and sit in that stillness. So maybe you can speak a little bit to that. I mean, that's my knowledge of it, but yours is more extensive than mine. So.
I love that. I mean, you and I both have the expertise in that area, but I like to, again, add inappropriate humor, but it's like, the asana is the inhale and you're like, it's like holding on to a shit, you're not doing the next step, which is to poop it out and release and surrender, everyone's inhaling and holding on to their tension and kind of constipated.
Oh my gosh.
Hold and do the next step.
Oh my gosh. Eilina always drops a bomb. She always seems to drop a poopy bomb too.
Totally. Potty humor never gets old.
Exactly. I was like, I didn't know this about Eilina until we actually started recording the pods, that there was there's kind of this mild thing going on in her. She goes to the poopy joke. I love it. I just think it's hysterical. So now you've made me laugh for the first time all week. I'm so grateful for that.
You just pooped. She just emotionally pooped.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and reminders to let go of the clinging and the holding that we all do and the gripping. Just let it go.
Yeah,
Amen.
exactly.
Amen.
I just want to say, I don't like, letting it all go in public, but I just want to say that when I show up for my yoga classes, there's a reason I'm wearing my tank top that says, I'm here for the Shavasana, bitches. Because for me, we're like the asana is like you said, just hold, getting through it, and then my favorite part is the surrender. So hallelujah to the Shavasana.
That's a new tank top right there. Hallelujah to the Shavasana.
Totally.
Love it. Make that one.
Soulnet gear, shall we, ladies?
Yeah, that's gonna be our first piece of merch.
Yeah.
Can we do something like chuck it in the fuck it bucket too? Because I really like that phrase.
I love where this is going. I'm here for all day. I'm here all day, girls.
The top of the t-shirt could say yoga's to-do list. Number 1, chuck it in the fuck it bucket. Number 2.
Number 2, fart away.
Exactly. Oh, this is rich. Love it.
So fun factor for all of our listeners as well. Laughter actually has been proven to increase our immunity levels. So laugh away, even if it's potty humor, all is good. Just not laughing at others. That's not so frowned upon. But laugh at yourself, because I do that all the time. And I figured that's a healthy sign.
Absolutely. It moves us up the polyvagal ladder as well, more towards ventral. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
which
has us open up up to the pro-social engagement and be able to connect with people. So yeah, I think that's why I'm so attached to potty humor, because it's a trailhead, it's an access point. It's a great
never
tool.
gets old.
It never gets old. You're absolutely right.
Oh gosh, I love this so much, you guys. Who knew I would be able to transform my pain into this? Perfect. Right? Thank you.
So in our pod episode today, we discovered that there's safety to show up exactly as we are, and that to really show up authentic means to bring all of us to the table, especially in the safety of an intentional container, one that is created with the desire and intention and leaning in to be fully real and feel fully received. Because life has shadow and light both. And so it feels fitting to end with Carl Jung's quote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And I'll add a feminine piece to Carl Jung's wisdom, conscious and loved, by making the darkness conscious and loved.
Thanks for tuning into SoulNet, everyone. If you liked what you heard on today's episode, please follow, like, and share on your favorite platforms. If you have questions or topics you'd like covered on our podcast, please email us at soulnetsisters@gmail.com.